Welcome to Now We're Getting Somewhere. I'm Katie, and I'm a certified life coach, but I've also been a management consultant at McKinsey and a product manager at a tech startup. In other words, I know what it feels like to have a life that looks pretty good on paper, but doesn't feel as good as I want it to. I help my professional clients develop lives that are more meaningful, happy, and also more successful. And I want to share the same practical insights with you. Let's go. Just wanted to record a little shorty for you this week, something that has been on my mind recently and I have been repeating to myself a lot. And I thought that this idea might be useful to you too. I wanted to share a concept today that's about energy, but it's also about how to achieve our goals or intentions more effectively. I'm going to share a little client story that helps to illustrate this concept, and then I'm going to share a personal story, and I think all of that will make it pretty clear how you might apply this same idea to your own life. And then we'll call it a day. So some time ago, I was talking to a client of mine. She was feeling, as she entered that session, quite tired and frustrated from her work. It had been a really tough season at her job. Her job was very tough, as I said, and she was also feeling frustrated that despite having a goal of cultivating more of a life outside of work, more hobbies and interests, she hadn't done that as much as she wished she had. And as we talked about it in that moment, we noticed that she had two opposing tendencies. On one hand, she wanted to do some of the kind of like not so healthy, doesn't totally serve her soothing behaviors to deal with feeling so tired and frustrated both with work and her life in general. So for her, she often used shopping to soothe herself. So she noticed that she wanted to buy some clothes that, maybe she didn't really need, or book a fancy vacation in the name of relaxation, even though she was actually trying to be a lot more thoughtful about her spending in this particular season. So that was one tendency she was noticing. And on the other hand, she noticed that she had this desire to say, well, if I'm frustrated that I haven't built as rich of a life outside of work as I want, then I got to go after it big time, and I have to start today. So I have to take everything on my list that I've been wanting to do, and I need to get really serious about it. I need to write my screenplay for an hour every day, and also sign up for a weekly pottery class, and also a weekly dance class. And she had some other things too. And this client had so little energy and time at this time that these would have been quite substantial commitments for her. And first of all, isn't this the most relatable thing in the world? Don't we all have these tendencies? On one hand, we want to slip into whatever our not so healthy, soothing behaviors are, which might be scrolling or eating or wine, or for this client, there was some spending. But most of us have at least one, if not more. I know I do. On the other hand, she had this tendency to go sprinting in the direction of achievement, virtuousness, working on these goals. And I was sitting with all that she was telling me, kind of letting it land in my body and seeing what was coming up. And I eventually just said to her, what comes up for me is it feels like you just had a shitty day, or you just ate a bunch of junk food, and you're at the bodega on the corner, and you're tempted to either buy a chocolate bar and a bag of chips on one hand, or you want to go and buy the most perfect, healthy, meal-planned groceries for the whole week, like gallons of green juice and kale and plain chicken. But really, you just need to buy a bag of baby carrots. And I'll jump in here to say, if you don't know what a bodega is, it's kind of like a small corner convenience store. They're everywhere in New York City. They're often family owned, and they will have treats, but usually also like groceries or a deli counter or sandwiches or things like that. The client who I was speaking to lived in New York City, and I lived in New York City for a handful of years in my 20s. And in my experience living in New York City, you're always running to the bodega for something. So in that moment, I was saying to her, you need to just buy the baby carrots at the bodega. And you need to let that be good enough. I am literally, as I say this, like visualizing a bag of baby carrots. Are you visualizing a bag of baby carrots? And is a bag of baby carrots the perfect health strategy forever and ever? I mean, it's certainly not as good as an entire week of perfectly healthy meal planned, macrobiotically, or planned groceries. It's not. It's just one snack. But also, it is way better than eating an entire chocolate bar and an entire bag of chips. I think most of us can agree. I'm not saying that we're never allowed to eat chips and chocolate. I'm just saying most of the time we will feel better about our health, how we feel in our body if we eat some baby carrots instead of a bar of chocolate and a bag of chips. And what I was pointing to in that moment was that buying the baby carrots at the bodega actually requires discipline or intention in both directions. Because yes, it requires a bit of discipline or intention or whatever you want to call it to not do the junky, not so good for us thing. Sure, clearly. But also, if you're a certain kind of person, and I'm this kind of person, and my client was too, you can easily identify an even better option, an even healthier option in this metaphor, or in terms of going after whatever your goals are. It might be an option that is bigger or faster or harder or more impressive. That was what was happening when this client was saying things like, oh, I'll just write my screenplay for an hour every day, in addition to her extraordinarily demanding job and just in general being super exhausted. She wanted to go big after these other goals. She wanted to turn around after a junk food meal and buy only the most perfect, healthy, pristine groceries for an entire week. And so many of us, not just this client, but most of the people listening to this podcast, I would guess, we waste so much time and energy ping-ponging between too little and too much. And in the end, it hurts our capacity to achieve our goals. I'm going to say that again. In the end, it hurts our capacity to achieve our goals. We get it. We get discouraged because we've had that metaphorical meal of junk food, or on a literal level, we realize that we're behind on some goal we have professionally or personally. So then we go for too much, but then we don't actually achieve it and we get discouraged and we're not actually as effective as we could be because since we made the goal too big, we didn't prioritize realistically. So then we didn't actually do the most important thing with the limited time or energy we had. This whole process is terrible, actually, for goal achievement. I see it constantly with my one-on-one clients. What's typically far more effective is some action that seems too small or too easy, but is doable and sustainable for us. The baby carrots at the bodega of it all. I just met with another client of mine yesterday. She's a PhD student. And one of our big themes is basically just some simple, doable goals. Honestly, some goals that feel a little bit too simple, a little bit too doable. They are carrots at the bodega level of goals for her productivity, because I don't want her buying a whole week's worth of groceries that she's going to end up not eating. Actually, this particular client is a really healthy eater, so the literal groceries probably wouldn't be a problem for her, but I mean metaphorically in terms of her research work. She's been buying the groceries she doesn't eat for too long. We need her to just get the healthy enough snack and let that be enough. So I will say it again. Buying carrots at the bodega is hard. It's unintuitive for many of us. It requires discipline in both directions. And, turning the lens to me a little bit, I will say I'm not exempt from this. This is hard for me too. I want to share my personal example now. As I've mentioned here on this podcast at least a couple times before, one of my personal goals that I have been working on for a while is to become a person who does regular strength training. I am a lifelong daily walk taker, but I am not a lifelong weightlifter. I have had feelings and thoughts about weightlifting. I'm not a person who does that, but also for muscle retention, for bone density as I age, for being able to pick up my 54-pound intellectually disabled child without hurting myself, I gotta lift some weights. It just has to be done. And I have been trying for a few years now, if I'm being honest, to find some sort of strength training routine that would stick. And I've been struggling. And the past few months, thank heavens, fingers crossed, knock on wood, I have found something that seems to be working for me. And even as I have found the success that I have been trying to do for a long time now, I'm noticing the tendency to, again, metaphorically want to buy a whole week's worth of perfectly healthy groceries. Because again, I'm finally lifting weights twice a week now. And I notice my brain having thoughts like, oh, but I could go heavier. Let's go buy some even heavier weights. Or, maybe I should add on, in addition to my 2 days of lifting weights, one of those really, really challenging Pilates classes for a third day. Even though, if we're being realistic, I usually prefer the time flexibility and the sort of like lower stimulation of just taking like a long solo walk in my hilly neighborhood on days when I'm not lifting weights. So I've been saying to myself, Katie, just buy the baby carrots at the bodega. Just let that be good enough. Or less metaphorically, I've been saying to myself, Katie, just let it be a little bit easy. Don't move the goalposts. It's okay that it's a little bit easy. That means you can continue to do this. Sure, heavier weights would be better. So too would be an extra day of Pilates, but not right now. Right now, this is good. And team, again, it takes a certain amount of discipline to pull myself back from optimizing this. In the past, I think I have focused so much on the discipline required to even just get myself to lift weights at all. And have you noticed that I'm saying discipline a lot more than I usually would in a podcast? It's not my favorite concept, mostly because discipline feels so finite and limited. And I find that most of my clients already push themselves too hard by the time they've gotten to me. They're already kind of tapped out. So we need some other method of getting what they want that doesn't rely on discipline. Actually, just to continue this little tangent, I will say that the thing that's actually helped me be more successful at regularly lifting weights is that I found a way to kind of attach it to some of my other routines involving my kids. So it weirdly takes a lot less discipline than I expected, or that I think I used to try to use to get it done. I actually think that's why it's finally sticking. That's for a different discussion. But the point is, I notice these thoughts every time I go to lift my weights. Like, oh, you could do more. Why don't we go to Target and buy the 25-pound dumbbells? Or why don't we sign up for a Tuesday Pilates class? And I have to say to myself, Katie, just buy the baby carrots at the bodega and let that be enough. So that's my offering to you today, team. On one hand, maybe this idea is not radical. I'm sure you've thought of it in some form before, that we want a little bit of challenge because we want a little more than we're doing now, but we don't want too much of a challenge. And I think this is the clincher. It takes a discipline and finesse to hold ourselves back from going too far in either direction. I think we think so often of, making sure there's enough challenge, but we also need to think a lot about making sure there's not too much challenge. And I slightly hesitated on making this podcast for that reason, this worry that it was too obvious. But honestly, in my experience, some of what makes coaching successful is not that I am always saying some insight that has never existed in the world before. Rather, it's that I'm saying just the right thing in just the right way at just the right time to my clients, such that it lands just how it needs to. And they suddenly find it easier to face and move through whatever challenge they're in. And it is my hope, my sincere hope, that this concept, these stories, give that to you today. And that client who I mentioned at the beginning, who wanted to either, book a luxury vacation to relax or commit to these extremely aggressive hobby targets, by the end of the session, we had identified doable, practical, buying baby carrots at the bodega steps that she could pursue towards her outside of work goals that were, yes, a bit of a challenge in a tiring season. And of course, anything outside of work is a challenge in a busy work season, but they were also gentle and doable, and she liked them and they felt right to her. And I hope in whatever challenge you're in, you can identify the same. I'm rooting for you. Talk to you soon. If you really want to change in a meaningful, lasting way, that's when you need a life coach. Every client I've worked with has had incredibly personalized reasons why they're in the tired or anxious or stuck or uninspired state they're in. Working with me can help you identify those roadblocks, which are usually blind spots that you genuinely cannot see, and implement a profoundly customized, doable plan for overcoming them. I have a very small, high-end, one-on-one coaching practice. If you'd like to be my next client, reach out at katiesiever.com. I'd love to meet you.